Hi, I'm Bill Stewart. Welcome to Stewart Stories. So here we are in a little tropical setting to show a little respect to one of the unique people in my life. And I got to tell you, Jimmy Buffett's that guy. There's never met anybody like him or even near him that was so kind and considerate and thoughtful to everybody around him. And I'm going to tell a few stories about him because he was such an amazing person. And for examples, you know, when Jimmy was a young man, he was trying to make a go of it, singing songs and trying to get known and get a job singing songs, which he never thought he was good enough to even do that. So he ended up hooking up with a friend of mine, Corb Donahue, back in it was in the late 60s, and he needed somebody to, you know, promote his music. Corb was in the music industry, a very articulate, smart guy, and said, "Hey Jimmy, you're welcome to sleep at my house." And Jimmy actually slept in his Volkswagen van in the driveway, from what I understood. And Corb got him out there and promoted his entire circuit and got him launched. When Jimmy found out that Corb was ill, he wanted to take him, you know, up and down the coast. So he went and was trying to arrange all that, and all of a sudden Corb died. So Jimmy was renewing his plane license for his jet to fly a jet in Texas. He got in his jet, flew all the way to Orange County, rented a car, went down to San Onofre Beach on a windy, rainy, terrible day. Everybody pulled up on the beach. He pulls out a guitar and sings songs to Corb Donahue. It was unbelievable. For a guy like that to go that far out of his way, and not only that, he took the ashes, waded out in the water, poured the ashes into the ocean. Everybody has teary eyes, crying. And then we all went back to the Rib Trader, and he stood up on a microphone and told beautiful, funny stories about Corb Donahue. And Corb was a great guy, and Jimmy, that story tells you the core of the person, somebody who he never forgot who helped him out. So here's how I actually met Jimmy Buffett. It's a hilarious story. This is back in the early 90s. I'm in my surf shop and I hear a phone call. They go, "Bill Stewart, line 2, Jimmy Buffett. Bill Stewart, line 2, Jimmy Buffett." And I started laughing. I go, "Yeah, right. And Nixon's on line 3. You know, like, come on, he's not calling me." And so I picked the phone up and I go, "Hello," and he goes, "Hey, this is Jimmy Buffett." And I go, "Hey, this is Bill Stewart." And he goes, I go, "Hey man, what's up?" And he goes, "Well, got a little problem. My surfboard won't fit in my airplane." And I said, "Well, what do you need?" And he goes, "I need a surfboard that goes into 2 parts. Like they used to make one back in the 60s called a suitcase surfboard, and they'd go apart because they wouldn't put them on airplanes when they were 9 and 10 feet long back in the 60s. So they made like a suitcase out of it where you could hand carry it on, put it in the baggage." And he says, "Hey man, would you make me one of those?" And I said, "Jimmy, first of all, they ride like crap because the flex in the board's terrible. It's a horrible surfboard." And he says, "Well, were you going to make it for me?" I go, "No, I don't think so." And he goes, "You know, my roadies will make anything I want. They'll do anything I want." And I said, "Well, guess what? I'm not one of your roadies, am I?" And he busted up laughing. Now that's how we met. And he says, "Well, what do you think I should do? How do I fix this problem?" And I said, "It's pretty simple, Jimmy. Just buy a bigger plane." So that's when he went out and got that big old Albatross seaplane. So we got to have stories about the legendary, unbelievable concerts that this guy created. But that's the wildest, craziest concerts was in the parking lot. Stuff you've never seen in your life. You'll talk about it forever. Now, I've had the luxury of having front row seats because Jimmy was so crazy generous. Jimmy's up there playing. He takes the pick, looks us right in the eye and flicks it, and my daughter catches his pick. And I was like, oh my God, what's the odds of that? You know, it's those things that happen around Jimmy Buffett. So being backstage with him prior to the concerts, I saw many of the concerts, but to peek out that curtain at Irvine Meadows and see 20,000 people's faces looking up at the stage, I walked back and went, oh my God, how does he do this? And his wife says, "Are you nervous at a surf contest?" I go, "No." And she goes, "Same thing." He's not, because he's walking around talking, having a good time. Somebody walks up, hands him a guitar, and he goes, "Hey, I made this for you. Want to play it?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll play it tonight." And he went out there and played that guitar. It was just constant things like that happened. And one of the really cool things was his road manager said, "Would you like to fly in Jimmy's airplane over Irvine Meadows?" I went, "Absolutely. I don't really like airplanes, but that's too cool to pass up." So we go out to Orange County, and there's the plane sitting there, 80-foot long Albatross seaplane from 1955, twin 9-cylinder engines. We take off down the runway, and it's like, "Rah!" And I'm like, "Come on, baby, it left," because it's so old and noisy. And we had headphones, and inside the plane, he had my surfboards all over the roof and a Zodiac tied to the wall. Imagine landing on an island, pulling out the Zodiac and your surfboards. I'm telling you, that's the kind of way his brain worked. So as we're flying over the concert, I'm hanging out the window, and they had one of those double doors. So I opened up half the door, I'm leaning out, and it was so cool because when you bank turn like this, the centrifugal force held my legs against the thing. You weren't gonna fall out. So I'm hanging out the window waving, 20,000 people are waving at me, and they all thought I was Jimmy Buffett. And he was backstage waiting to come out. So all of the concerts, his generosity, just so many fun times with my family and all my employees at those concerts. That's Jimmy Buffett, the most generous, kind guy I've ever met. So Jimmy would come into town every year and walk into my surf shop, and he would just be jumping around, all happy and lively. I mean, I always tell people to leave a trail of happiness, and I've tried to do that in my life, but I think he could have taught classes on it, because everywhere he went, he made people laugh and feel important. He never climbed on top of other people. So when he was in town, we went down to the beach to go surfing together. We drive down there, and he's suiting up. He's excited like a 17-year-old kid. And he gets a suit on, and I see him paddling out. I look up, and here comes 2 dolphins swimming past the pack and goes around and around Jimmy Buffett. And I went, "Oh my God, I've seen it all. Only Jimmy Buffett would have 2 dolphins." Now, who knows what he said to them? You know what I mean? I'm surprised he didn't have a 2 dolphin song. One of the times I was hanging out with Jimmy, I said, "I'm from Florida, Hollywood, Florida, where I grew up. And I got a lot of friends and family. I moved to California here when I was 19 years old, and I wanted to go to the Keys." And he says, "Really, you want to go to the Keys?" And I said, "Yeah, I would love to go down there." And he goes, "Cool, you can use my house." And I went, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, absolutely." So sure enough, we get everything organized. We go down there. He's got this little tiny house in this old school area. You're not allowed to expand the house at all. And we walk in and we look over, and there it is. There's the clock, frozen at 5 o'clock. And I went, "It's time for a cocktail." So staying at his house, hanging out on Duval Street. Now, most people had no idea that he still had that old house down there. And I don't know if he still owns it or not, but what a generous person to allow me and my family to go hang out down there. It was pretty special. Well, one morning I woke up and hear this knock on, like a pounding on my door, and I open my door, and this guy's standing there. It's the mailman, and he goes, "Dude, I can't believe it, I can't believe it." I go, what can't you believe? He goes, "Your name's in the song." I go, "What song?" He goes, "Jimmy Buffett. At the end of the song, Mexico. He put your name in there." And I went, "No, he didn't." He goes, he did. And I went, "Seriously?" And he goes, "Yeah, I heard it. Your name's in there." So I get the album and I play it. And right at the very end, this is the kind of things he would do. He mumbled, "I got my Billy Stewart longboard."
I don't know, I might have my longboard down there. No, Billy Stewart made me. I might go surfing while I'm down there.
It was so cool. I was like, here he is singing a song, and he promotes my brand. And that's what he was doing. And he put my boards on the CD covers. He put my name in one of his books. He's just one of those guys that people who he likes, he really does go out of his way to seriously help them out. In a really, and he never expected a pat on the back for it. He just did that. So I got some really good friends in Montauk, New York. What a wonderful place. Jimmy was in town. He has a house up there in Montauk, and He heard we were all going surfing, and we all met down at the beach. We paddled out, caught a bunch of waves. We had a blast. It was unreal. And as we got tired, we went to lunch. Jimmy's standing by this giant green van, bubble top Ford, four-wheel drive, Quigley deal. And he's holding some cash, and he holds it up in his hand. And he goes, "This is all your fault." Because I guess I'm good at spending other people's money. And he made a big joke about it, but he loved the van, and he was down on the beach with it, pulled all his gear out. It was incredible. And he says, "Hey, tonight, you guys come over to my house. We're going to have some dinner." So we pulled into this huge compound, beautiful property right on the intercoastal, huge dock for pulling his plane up. And we had wine and every kind of, it was a wild night, and it was pretty incredible. And just to see the house with the compound and all the guest houses around, he lived a very blessed life, to say the least, and he shared it with all of his friends, and that's the kind of guy he was. So to add to the Jimmy Buffett stories, Jimmy was, I think it was behind my shop, I forget where we were, but he saw one of my hats, and he goes, "Hey man, I want a hat like that." He goes, and I said, "All right, you can have this one." And I pulled it off in hand, and he goes, "Then you can have this one." Sweat all over it. He gave it to me, and I thought, when a friend like this passes away, this has so much more meaning to me than just thrown in the closet. And this is a part of Jimmy. He always wore this style of hat, this round dome style. You'll always see it on him. Makes me sad to hold this hat. But you got to look at how he lived, not how he passed away. So while I was down in South Florida hanging out, all of a sudden I get this phone call, and I get on the phone, and sure enough, it's Jimmy Buffett. And I go, "Hey Jimmy, what's up?" And he sounded kind of anxious, and I was like, "What's going on?" And he goes, "I just wrote this song, and I think it's really good." He goes, "Tell me what you think." And I'm going, "Okay." He starts singing the song to me, goes through the whole song, and I was like, he goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "Sounds perfect, it's awesome." And he goes, "Hey, thanks," and he hangs up. I'm like, well, what was that all about? Why would he call me and sing a song to me? Why does he care what I think? But it was about surfing, and I thought, oh, he's doing his homework. He's making sure that the terminologies of surfing is accurate relative to a hardcore surfer. So I thought, okay, this is smart on his part. But there it is. Jimmy crosses the T's, dot the I's, and that's why he was so successful. He really was a detail-oriented person in every way. Jimmy's road manager shows up at my shop, and he says, "Hey, I need a Volkswagen van." And I go, "Why?" He goes, "Well, Jimmy wants to take a road trip and rent an old vintage Volkswagen van." He goes, "Do you know anybody that owns one?" I go, "I don't think so." On the way home, sure enough, there it is, right there, and coming up my street. Christy, this lady down the street, said, I pulled in the driveway. I said, "Hey, Jimmy wants to rent your Volkswagen. Would you rent it?" And she goes, "Yeah, I used to work for him. Yeah, of course I'd rent it to him." So he rents the thing. We take it behind my shop, and Jimmy goes over the whole thing. Now, here's how this works and this works. He's all excited about this. And I think he wanted to do a 1960s flashback road trip, through California. Now, his intention was to take Corb Donahue, but Corb had passed away before that, and he rented the thing, and he was so happy. He was like a kid at Christmas. And he is a kid at Christmas. He was born on Christmas Day. What about that? So one of the times when Jimmy shows up at my shop, he goes, "Hey man, let's go to lunch." And this is when I first met the guy, first couple of years. And we go next door, we sit in this booth, he's looking me right in the eyes, and he, of course, what does he order? A cheeseburger. Of course he did. And so we both have cheeseburgers, and he leans over and he looks me right in the eye and says, "Isn't it amazing how well we've done?" And I was thinking, and I said to him, I said, "Jimmy, I have done well, but we're not in the same league." So it was kind of funny the way he said it. But everything he said was so lighthearted and so excited and happy for everybody that is successful. So I love that about him. So I got a phone call from Jimmy's people to say, "Hey, we need a surfboard that we can chop in half, because we're doing this big show, and Jimmy wants to ride the surfboard across the stage, hanging five and soul arching." And they wanted to make it look like a shark bit it in half. And I said, "Oh, okay, I have a board for you, no problem." But just so happened, the board that I actually chopped up was my personal surfboard I competed on. And at Seaside Reef at about a 10-foot day, there's pictures that really depict the quality of this board and my love of that board. And I find it interesting that the board and the Jimmy Buffett signature on the back of the board all ties together. It's pretty incredible how that board accomplished so much, because it was a phenomenal day of surfing and a really exciting concert to see him riding my board and carrying the back half out on the stage, all signed by him. The thing with Jimmy Buffett, everywhere he went, he pulled people up. He was an eternal optimist, the most stoked guy on the planet, and he shared that love with everyone else. His music, I would call it tropical country, which I don't know if there's a category, but if there was, he would be the king. And I have to say, that guy left a trail of happiness like no other, and he'll forever be missed.